and welcome to Firstpost Live, where we bring you the day's top 4 stories from across the world. I am Gusheen Garland, live from the Firstpost studios. Let's begin with the headlines. Russian President Vladimir Putin will visit India on December 4 to 5th to sign trade deals with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and hold talks on bilateral and global issues. The death toll from the massive fire that tore through residential estate buildings in Hong Kong climbs to 128, with dozens of people still missing and authorities finally ending marathon firefighting efforts. Ukraine's anti-corruption agencies carry out authorized searches linked to President Zelensky's chief of staff as part of an investigation into an $100 million kickback scheme at the state atomic energy company. Guinea-Bissau's military installs the country's major general as the transitional president after toppling the civilian government in a sweeping coup just before election results. And the World Health Organization releases unprecedented global guidelines for the first time to improve infertility prevention, diagnosis and treatment. Today we begin in Washington. The American capital is reeling after a deadly shooting on 2 National Guard troops just blocks from the White House. That has triggered swift reactions and opened a new front in America's battle over immigration policy. In the latest, President Donald Trump confirmed that 20-year-old National Guard member Sarah Beckstrom has died from her injuries. Beckstrom, who enlisted in 2023 and was serving with 863rd Military Police Company of the West Virginia Army National Guard, had volunteered to spend her Thanksgiving holiday helping secure the nation's capital. Her death has sent shockwaves through the military community. Meanwhile, her colleague, 24-year-old Andrew Wolf, remains in critical condition.
I must unfortunately tell you that just seconds before I went on, right now, I heard that Sarah Beckstrom of West Virginia, one of the guardsmen that we're talking about, highly respected, young, magnificent person, started service in June of 2023. Outstanding in every way. She's just passed away. She's no longer with us.
President Trump, while speaking to reporters, expressed anguish over the incident, which he termed as a terrorist attack.
I want to express the anguish and the horror of our entire nation at the terrorist attack yesterday in our nation's capital, in which a savage monster gunned down 2 service members in the West Virginia National Guard who were deployed as part of the D.C. task force, which has done such an incredible job.
The 2 soldiers were shot at close range on Wednesday afternoon near a bustling commercial zone just 900 meters away from the White House. Police quickly detained the suspect, 29-year-old Ramanullah Lakhanwal, originally from Afghanistan, who was himself injured during the incident. Authorities say the suspect arrived in the United States in 2021 and was granted asylum earlier this year, though no permanent residency. He had previously served with the U.S. Army in Afghanistan.
I also spoke to Director of the CIA, John Ratcliffe, last night, and Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. There is confirmation now that the subject had a relationship in Afghanistan with partner forces. We are fully investigating that aspect of his background as well, to include any known associates that are either overseas or here in the United States of America.
On Thursday morning, before Beckstrom's death was announced, U.S. officials said he would face multiple charges, including 3 counts of assault with intent to kill while armed and possession of a firearm during a violent crime. The moment the attacker's Afghan background became public, the shooting took on a different politically charged dimension. Within hours, President Trump called for a sweeping re-examination of all Afghans who entered the country during the Biden administration.
We must now re-examine every single alien who has entered our country from Afghanistan under Biden, and we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country, If they can't love our country, we don't want them. America will never bend and never yield in the face of terror.
By Wednesday night, immigration authorities announced they were indefinitely halting all processing of Afghan immigration requests. Then came an even broader move. The president said he intends to suspend migration, quote-unquote, permanently from all third world countries. President Trump also threatened to reverse millions of admissions approved under Joe Biden, revoke federal benefits for non-citizens, and deport anyone he deems a security risk or, in his words, non-compatible with Western civilization. These remarks mark a sharp escalation in President Trump's already heavy emphasis on mass deportations in his second term. The administration took another major step, a full review of immigration status for every Afghan green card holder and for residents of 18 other countries listed in a June executive order. That order previously banned or restricted entry from nations classified as of identified concern, including Iran, Libya, Somalia, Yemen, and several others. As the investigation into the shooting continues, one young soldier is gone, another fights to survive, and the political aftershocks are reshaping U.S. immigration policy in real time. And for now, Washington is left confronting both grief and a fresh wave of uncertainty. We move to the hardening of positions in the nearly 4-year-old war in Ukraine, a conflict that has already rewritten Europe's security map, and one that now faces a new and increasingly fraught negotiation phase. Russian President Vladimir Putin stood before cameras in Kyrgyzstan yesterday, making his most blunt offer in months. Putin offered to end the war. But for that, Kyiv must withdraw from territories Moscow claims, or Putin's army will be taken them by force. Listen in to the Russian president's offer.
We're still receiving requests to cease hostilities here and there. Ukrainian troops will withdraw from the territories they occupy. That's when the hostilities will cease. If they don't withdraw, we'll achieve this by force of arms.
Right now, Moscow controls about 1/5 of Ukraine, a patchwork of occupied territory that Kyiv has repeatedly said it will never cede. And that territorial question about who controls what and who gets to keep it remains the biggest blockade to any kind of peace. And Putin's comments come at a time when Washington is pushing a surprise peace framework with U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff set to be in Moscow next week. Putin has called the revised U.S. peace plan a possible starting point, raising hopes of a possible breakthrough in the coming times.
We agree that this could form the basis of future agreements, but it would be impolite of me to talk about any final options now, since there aren't any.
On the Ukrainian side, there's a clear red line that hasn't moved since day one of the war. Kyiv continues to shut down any idea of giving up land. Kyiv says the only realistic topic for talks right now is defining the line of contact, which refers to over 1,000-kilometer stretch of front line where both armies face each other. Meanwhile, on the ground, Russia says its offensive is gaining momentum. Putin repeated his claim that Russian forces have encircled Ukrainian troops in key cities of the Donetsk region. His assessment remains blunt. Russian offensive in the region can't be held back, but Kyiv maintains it still holds the defense lines.
Those in the West who understand the consequences of this insist on ending hostilities as quickly as possible, even if that requires some concessions from the Kyiv regime, because they understand that the front will begin to collapse in certain areas, and then the Ukrainian armed forces will lose all combat capability. They will lose their most combat-ready units, as is currently happening in the Krasnormek area.
Added to the military pressure, Putin also took aim at Ukraine's presidency, referring to the corruption scandal that has gripped the corridors of power in Kyiv in the middle of the war. The comments come as Moscow continues to cast doubt on Ukraine's political stability and governance, part of a wider effort to shape international perception ahead of any negotiation round.
We're well aware of the corruption scandal in Kyiv. Either they're learning from the Europeans, or the Europeans are learning from the Ukrainian elite. In any case, both are theft. We treat it as such and are preparing countermeasures. But what those measures will be, the government will announce later if that happens.
It's been nearly 4 years since the war in Ukraine began. Hundreds and thousands are dead, millions displaced, and with each passing month, the gap between what Moscow demands and what Kyiv will accept seems only to widen. Our next story comes from South Asia. Sri Lanka is facing a serious weather emergency. Floods and landslides have caused widespread damage and tragic loss of life. A cyclone named Ditwah swept across Sri Lanka today, causing widespread havoc, impacting thousands. Officials report that the death toll has climbed to 56, and the country has now deployed the military to tackle the situation, with more casualties feared as search and rescue efforts continue across the country. The severe weather began last week, but conditions took a drastic turn for the worse on Thursday, when intense rainfall swept through many regions. Homes, farmlands and major road networks were submerged, while unstable slopes gave way, triggering multiple landslides. The central tea-growing regions of Badulla and Nuwara Eliya, located about 300 kilometers east of Colombo, have been among the hardest hit. More than 25 people were killed there in landslides on Thursday alone. Authorities also confirmed that at least 21 people remain missing and 14 others have been injured in these mountainous areas. With conditions becoming dangerous, the government has ordered all schools and public offices to close on Friday. Heavy rains have caused many rivers and reservoirs to overflow, making several routes impassable. Rail services were also halted after tracks were blocked by fallen debris or completely flooded. Dramatic visuals show Air Force helicopter lifting people from a roof of a flooded home, where rescue teams used boats to bring stranded residents to safety. Over the past 11 days, nearly 4,000 people have been affected nationwide. Sri Lankan president has called an emergency meeting as 17 districts now face escalating risks. Sri Lanka's meteorological department had confirmed on Thursday that the low-pressure system southeast of the island has strengthened into a depression and is expected to intensify further.
Because this is moving close to Sri Lanka, there are signs that there will be the highest rainfall experienced by the country in recent history.
Authorities urge the public to stay alert and follow safety advisories as this dangerous weather system continues to develop. As rescue teams and military troops carry out operations in Sri Lanka, the warning couldn't be more clear that this is far from an isolated crisis. Across South and Southeast Asia, countries are reeling under record-breaking rainfall and flash floods. And the Indian Meteorological Department says the cyclone Ditwah is likely to head towards India, Chennai and the North Tamil Nadu coast. Residents of Chennai and adjacent coastal areas have been warned to prepare for heavy rains, strong winds and rough seas over the next 48 hours. And at the end, these erratic weather patterns are part of a larger warning for us all. That when nature strikes with such force, no region is immune. Stay with us as this story continues to unfold. Moving on to our last story. To strengthen professionalism, reinforce national identity and create a unified workplace image, Saudi Arabia is moving towards formally defining how employees should present themselves at work. The kingdom has released a draft nationwide workplace dress code that, if adopted, will apply to both public and private sector employees. The Ministry of Human Resources has unveiled a code of appearance and conduct. The proposal sets clear standards for attire, grooming and behavior across all workplaces. It is now open for public consultation and the final version will be issued after feedback. Now, under the draft, Saudi men will be required to wear the national dress while at work. This typically consists of the traditional long white robe known as the sawab, paired with gutra or plain white headscarf. Expatriate men will be required to wear formal business suits. The goal is to maintain a consistent level of professionalism across the workforce. The draft also sets modesty requirements for female employees, applicable to both Saudi and non-Saudi employees. Women must wear loose, non-transparent clothing that fully covers the body. These rules apply in offices, at official events and during public or media appearances. The aim is to ensure uniformity while aligning with Saudi cultural values. Now, beyond the attire, proposal outlines acceptable workplace behavior too. Employees must maintain professionalism, hygiene and integrity at all times. They must avoid political or ideologically charged accessories or statements or any item displaying offensive symbols or slogans. That will be prohibited. Employees will need to draft and display an internal dress code aligned with national regulations. Companies that fail to enforce the rules could face penalties under labor law. Past fines for similar violations have gone up to $1,300 per establishment. Once finalized, the regulation will take effect 30 days after publication in the official gazette. The draft marks one of Saudi Arabia's strongest moves towards standardizing workplace appearance. Now that defined attire rules are being proposed, attention will shift to how organizations will adapt when the law is finalized. The public consultation will determine how the final code is shaped, and the kingdom is watching to see how these standards will influence everyday office life. That's all for today. Thank you for joining us. I am Gursheen Garland, and we'll see you right back here next week. Until then, stay informed and stay tuned to Firstpost.